You know who decides if you need a cervical exam? It's you. That's right. The cervix is just actually the bottom of your uterus, but there are a lot of things that it can tell us. It's a great tool in our toolbox in labor and delivery, but the ultimate decision is always up to you, but that is a lot of responsibility. So today I'm going to tell you how to make the choice if a cervical exam is right for you. And here's the big fact. Not every cervical exam is necessary. And so we got to ask the question, why? Now, you might get a variety of answers, and I'm going to kind of go through those different answers and how you can make the choice. The first answer you might get is, oh, I just offer it, right? A lot of times they will offer a cervical exam after they drew the group beta strap culture. Your pants are already off, you're in the stirrups. They're like, do you want me to do one while I'm here? And sometimes doctors do something kind of dumb. They say, hey, I'm going to check your cervix, when they should say, hey, do you want me to check your cervix? So if your provider says, hey, I'm gonna, go, oh, do you want to know if I want you to check my cervix? So that you're starting that conversation off in a good way. You want them to know that they should be asking consent. They should be asking consent. There is no confusion there. And it's always up to you. If they say, oh, I'm just offering it, then it's completely up to you. Now, I want to remind you guys that you think everyone thinks the same way you do. I do that too. But there are two groups of people out here. There is the group of people who absolutely want that cervical exam. They've had some contractions. They wonder what it's doing to their body. It helps them to possibly feel a little bit more in control of their body. And they want to know what their cervix is doing, which is 100% okay. There is also the group of people who absolutely does not want to have their cervix checked. They just don't think it's worth it. And so there are two different sets of people. Your provider does not know which set you are, and so they offer it. Now, another answer that your provider might give is, this is just what we do. Crazy fact. In some hospitals, they check people's cervix every hour. A lot of times this is in teaching hospitals where those residents need lots of experience checking cervixes. But every hour does seem like overkill for me. Now, at that point in time, again, this is up to you. So if they come in every hour and say, hey, we're going to check your cervix, again, reframe that for them and say, oh, are you wondering if I want you to check my cervix? Again, that's going to remind them that they should be asking you. And then you decide, yeah, I'd love to have my cervix checked, or no, I would prefer not to have my cervix checked. Again, it is always up to you. But you are going to have consequences if it ends up being a bigger thing. Editor Hillary here. I just wanted to say that when you're making the choice, then there are consequences to every choice. And now we're going to move into some ones where the consequences might be a little bit bigger than the things that we've talked about previous to this. Now, these first two, not a big deal. You know, offering it, good. Saying this is just something we do, kind of weird. I don't understand why hospitals do that, and you don't have to understand it either, and you can always refuse it. However, we are now going to get into the weeds a little bit more, why they might need to check your cervix and what you can be doing in these other situations as well. Because this is a point in time where it changes your plan of care. So if you're asking why and they're just like, I'm offering it, or no freaking good reason, this point in time, they're saying, you know, we're trying to decide if you should go home. We're trying to decide if you can get IV pain medication. We're trying to decide if you can push, right? This is going to change what happens from that point forward. If your cervix isn't opening, they might need to change something, right? Or you might need to go home, or we need to run you to the labor and delivery room because you're going to have your baby really soon. So when they're talking about this, there are some questions you can ask. What happens if I don't get it, right? How would we proceed if I didn't get my cervix checked? What's going to change if I do get it, right? If it's your admission one, it's going to be, you might go home or you might stay here, right? That's what's going to change. And those are pretty big changes. And this entire time, I want you to be reminding yourself that the decision is entirely yours. You're just asking for their input to help you make that choice. Now, again, I've kind of like jet skied over what this might happen, but an admission cervical exam, if you think you're in labor, it's really important that we check your cervix. I've seen far too many doulas say that this is not important, but it really is our best tool in our toolkit to decide if staying at the hospital is better for you or going home. A lot of times in labor and delivery, we'll check your cervix. Then we're going to ask the 6,000 million questions that we have to with induction, which I wish we didn't have to ask, but they're important in some way, apparently. And then we're going to check you about an hour later from that initial check, especially if that first one's just like 2 to 3. We're going to see, is that cervix dilating? In that hour, has that cervix changed? And as a reminder, the cervix is just the bottom of the uterus. As the baby's head pushes down on it, it opens this up and thins it out. Kind of think of a sweater. If you were pulling a tight sweater over your head, how those knitting would stretch open and thin out as you're pulling it over your head. Same thing with the cervix. And we want to see that the cervix is actively changing. So if we check you at first and you're 2 to 3 and we check you again in an hour and you're still 2 to 3, that shows us that maybe your best place to be at that point in time is home. And although that can be frustrating to get sent home, has 100% happened to Hillary, it is better for you to be there if it's the best place for you to be. And it doesn't mean that you can't come back even a half an hour to an hour later being in rip-roaring labor. That's totally fine too. And before your nurse discharges you, they should give you instructions on when to come back. That is very important. And I always want to remind you guys that going into labor and delivery helps you know that you and baby are in a safe place. You've done that. And now you can go home for a little bit until you get into labor a little bit more actively. Now, they might offer a cervical exam during an induction. And it's really important that we do cervical exams at specific points in an induction to see if the medication is working. Are these contractions opening your cervix? Because there can be contractions that don't open your cervix. And if that's the case, then we may need to change medications or change what we're doing to help your cervix dilate. It ultimately is just making sure that we're doing our job. So I just want to really clarify that just because we see contractions doesn't mean that your cervix is always opening, especially with an induction. So that's important to know as well. And at that point in time, the thing that could change is the medications could change. Possibly, maybe you need to go home, right? This isn't working. And I actually talked about this in one of my recent videos. I'm going to link that down below, but going home may be one of the best options you can choose if an induction is not working. It's not right for everybody, but it can be really helpful in the right circumstances. When you're making the choice to be induced, that's something that you should think about as well, because it usually comes with more cervical exams. By the way, if cervical exams are super painful, I actually have a whole video on making them more comfortable. I'm going to link it down below. And finally, pain medicine. So if you're asking for IV pain medication or possibly an epidural, especially if you're really in hard labor, we may want to check your cervix before we give it. IV pain medication, we can't give it too late in labor or it can be bad for baby. And with an epidural, we want to make sure that the baby's not coming out as the anesthesiologist comes in. It just kind of gives us an idea of where we're at. Again, that would change. Can we give the IV pain medication or can we not? Or do we have time for an epidural? So in those cases, a cervical exam can be really important for us. So the big question is why? When they offer a cervical exam, even if they use the dumb words of, I'm going to check your cervix, and you reframe it for them, oh, you want to check my cervix and are wondering if that's okay with me? Ask why, and then make the choice for yourself. Honestly, I see this as a much bigger deal on social media than we see in the hospital. Once people actually get into labor, they really understand why we would need to know how you're progressing. Now, a lot of the time, people want to refuse cervical exams because they find them very painful. I have a whole video on managing the pain of cervical exams. I'm going to link it up above. Thanks for joining us here on The Pregnancy Nurse, where we get you prepared, not scared, for your upcoming hospital birth.